Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, Citing Government Databases. Now, this is going to be a faster one. We have a very circumscribed, direct topic that we're going to be discussing today. So we're going to spend more of our time looking at how to do this with specific examples. So I think that we can get you out the door before we hit the half-hour mark. With that, let's dive in. Now, one of the things that we offer at the Writing Center is, of course, webinars like this. But if you have a specific question, you can always send us an email at onlinewritingcenter@acu.edu, or make an appointment if you have something like getting feedback on a paper that you'd like to schedule. You can schedule for an asynchronous appointment where you submit your draft, we look at it, send you feedback, or a real-time appointment where you get to talk with us in person. It's a choice of preferences and perhaps circumstances, and people go back and forth between the two. But let us now look at our main objectives today. So we're going to talk about how to cite and reference government databases. We're going to look at an assignment that requires doing that, and then we'll look at how to apply the principles that we're talking about more generally in the first case with specific examples related to those brought up in this assignment. So first, let's distinguish between references and citations. So in APA style, when you're indicating the source of information in the body of your text, in your essay, in your paper, that will be a citation. If you are listing the fuller information about what the source is and how to find it, that's going to be a reference entry in the references section at the end. So you might think of the reference or references section as a guide for locating a particular source of information, which happens to be conveniently collected in a list at the end of the paper. That's filled with reference entries. Now, citations are a shorthand key to finding information in that references list that will have 2 or 3 pieces of information. Who wrote it, the year it was published, and if you're quoting, a page number, a paragraph number, or a timestamp. So timestamp you'd use if you had, say, a video or an audio file, you were indicating the exact place there. Now, you can also include these when you're just doing a regular citation as an aid for the reader or for yourself as the writer to be able to go and find more information in case you're asked to expand something. But it's only, strictly speaking, required if you are using direct quotations, which should also be marked in quotation marks, as well as having the 3 elements, the author, the date, and the page, paragraph, or timestamp numbers. All right, so now, well, what does it look like? Well, for a reference entry, we're going to start with who wrote it, then when was it published, what is it called, and how do you find it? So for a book with just one author, that's going to be, Watson J. J being the initial for their first name. When was it published? 2011. What's it called? Nursing. How do you find it? Oh, you order it from the University Press of Colorado. Or if the press has gone out of business, you say, okay, well, I want to order this specific book by J. Watson, published in 2011, called Nursing. It was originally published by the University Press of Colorado. And that's enough information to find it. Now, if it's a published data set, it's the same basic information. Who wrote it or put it together? In this case, Pew Research Center. When was it published? 2018. What's it called? American Trends Panel, Wave 26. And Wave 26 is a proper noun, which is why the wave is capitalized. And then you can see that there's that note in square brackets saying it's a data set. And then we have a link for answering the how to find it question. And so if we were looking at something like the CDC data statistics page, data and statistics, well, this actually has a bunch of data sets. So we need to pick which specific one you're going to be citing if you're not just citing the website as a whole. And we want to be specific, so cite the specific resource. If you're discussing the website as a whole, cite the website as a whole. If you're discussing a particular data set or a database that they have, cite that thing. And in most cases, you're going to be going to a particular data set, and that being as specific as possible. So our author is the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. It was published in 2022. The set is called underlying cause of death, 2018 to 2021, single race results, deaths occurring through 2021. There's that note in square brackets saying it's a data set, and then we have a link to get to it. Now, one of the reasons we're citing that specific data set rather than their larger Wonder database is there's lots of different data sets in Wonder. It's named that for a reason. You could spend years and years going through the data that they have there. So with that, let's take a brief moment and ask the question, okay, so what kind of data are you interested in? So think about that moment, and then we're going to continue. All right, thought about it? Well, if you're in the HCAD class, then you might be thinking, well, I want to know about public health data. How can I understand what's going on with a community? And this isn't surveillance like the, spies coming to your house. This is looking at what's going on. Oh, we've got an uptick in flu. We should probably prepare for that. Or, hey, there's measles going on. Okay, we need to do some targeted education here to cut down on the spread and stop this from turning into something worse. So the assignment that we're using as a catalyst for discussion here is coming from the Community and Population Health course. And specifically, we're looking at the week 4 assignment about determining the impact of public health surveillance within a community or population. This assignment description begins with a preamble, which says, okay, well, let's, this week we are looking at how to use public health data. And so you have a community or population of interest that you've identified, and we're going to find out what data we have available on them. Now, there is a video that you should view, more on that later. And then we move to the assignment proper, and it says, okay, you need to create a presentation. And as part of that presentation, you're going to have references. That's one of the reasons we have this webinar here. And some of the references will be for the data sources that you're looking at. Going to the CDC website and looking at some of those databases and the data sets they have, something related to your chosen population. And then you'll describe it, and showing where you get the data is, you'll have your parenthetical citations, and you'll have your reference entries that all go together on a slide at the end. So we can see that this is asking you to evaluate that, making reference to the video. All right, so that'll be in your reference list as well, because you're analyzing things using the video criteria. And then if we look at the rubric for this, we see that you need to just describe the data that you got from the CDC website. So again, that's going to need to have citations and references. And to talk about what other data should be monitored. And if that's something that's available already, that's probably helpful to point out. Okay, now let's back up and now look at some specific examples. And for this, we're going to switch to our web browser here and take a look at what they have at Wonder. So going back here, so there's this link to the CDC website. And if you open that up, that'll take you to their data and statistics landing page. So let me go ahead and switch my web browser to that. And so this is a landing page, meaning it's a gateway to their different data sets and databases. So for example, we have this interactive database systems. We have things like the COVID tracker, data.cdc.gov, things that people use a lot, like say the deaths and mortality information, foodborne illness. You know what? Let's take a look at foodborne illness here. So if I open this up, we see that they have this surveillance and data systems page here that tells you about, food debt, FDOS, NARMs. So these are different systems that are surveying things. And so if we just gone and cited Wonder, yeah, that page we're at back here, yeah, that's way more general than these specific things. And you can see that this is tracking surveillance in 10 US sites. This is national data. So identifying the specific one that you're looking for, very important. And especially since, say, this antimicrobial resistance thing is very different from norovirus. As anyone who's had the misfortune of having a norovirus go through your household, yeah, neither of these things is good, but the norovirus tends to have more vomiting. All right, so let's back up here and let's take a look at, let's take food debt here. So we open that up and we see here we have, oh, they have a tool here. And so you could go to the surveillance and read about that and perhaps cite some of that. But we're probably more interested in this data here. So we have these different tools for accessing the data set. So let's go ahead and open up this, our pathogen surveillance tool. Now, as we're looking through this, you're probably thinking, okay, well, a tool is good, but is that going to be cited very differently than a data set? Well, we're going to be citing however you got to that. And yeah, it's going to be following the same basic function as the other reference examples. Who wrote it or put it together, and when was it published, what's it called, and how to find it. And that database, it's being a little bit slow now. So let's go ahead and try opening one of the others and see if that's a little bit more accommodating for our purposes here. Worst comes to worst, we'll just look at one of the others, but it does look kind of like they're having some maintenance on it. Oh, well. We're going to back up and let's look at, say, let's look at NARMs. Oh, wait, hey, this is loaded. Great. So here we have a set of data here that's being displayed. So how would you cite this? Now, this is just we're just looking at a dashboard at the data for 2021. So if we expand here, we see that we can make this more specific to, say, California. And so how would you cite this? Well, we are going to be looking at first, what is this? And so how would this be formatted? Well, let's go ahead and I'm going to open up a new space for us to include that. So we're starting out with the who wrote it and when was it published. Okay, that's simple enough. We want to, hold on, get that Zoom share going. All right, so you're creating your references slide. We know we need the link there. That's the how to find it. But who created it? Well, this is coming from the CDC website. They claim what we call corporate authorship for Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Don't want to link under that part. Now, the question comes up, okay, when was that published? And this is something that it can sometimes be a little confusing because you may say, well, oh, that was published in 2021. And that's not actually correct. This is the data for 2021. Now, if we're looking at this and it doesn't tell us exactly when it was published, then, oh, actually we have a data last updated 2023. Great. So there's our answer, 2023. So going back to our slides here, when was that published? 2023. And what's it called? Well, this is the the FoodNet Fast Diagnostic Laboratory Practices Tool. And that is a proper noun. And then we can name the data set here, which is 9 pathogens. (2021). And this part here, that's actually not a proper noun. So we see, all right, who wrote it? Centers for Disease Control. When was it published? 2023. What's it called? It's a data set. And then there's how to find it. Okay, let's take a look at some of those other examples out there. So let's say we're doing our national antimicrobial resistance system for enteric bacteria here. All right, well, let's take a look and see if they will give us a data set here. Now I see some reports, so we might or might not be able to find the raw data available. But if we look at frozen strawberries, we see it is extracting it. Okay, now if this has the information that you want, and you see outbreak information as of March 2023, there are. Now, this is the example of something that is dynamically updated. And so this is one of those rare cases where we would want to have the access information. So here, this is going to be a little bit different. So here we're actually citing the web page because the web page is where this is published. Now, this is also going to be Centers for Disease Control and Prevention as the author. Now, which goes first? Well, alphabetically, that's going to be O for the title here. But the question is, what is the date here there? And in that case, that was also updated in 2023. And our title is going to be Outbreak of Hepatitis A, Virus Infections, etc. And that's going to be in sentence case. So we can quickly change that using this tool, which exists in Word as well. Now, this is, again, something where it's updated dynamically. So we're going to actually have a retrieval date. So we'll put in today's date. And if you're ever curious about this, you can go to the APA style website and check out their reference examples here for many other instances. Let's take a quick look at that. And you see that they have examples for how to cite data sets of different sorts. And sometimes they have codes there to help identify it. Now, because this is this particular instance here, we're going to have that retrieved from And then our URL, that's going to be here. All right, now, if you're citing this, you may be thinking, oh, there's a problem. We've got two things from 2023. And that is why, as you assemble these into your list, you see, oh, well, we need a way to cite them uniquely. And so we will add letters to help distinguish that. 2023A, 2023B, and we're sorting alphabetically by the title of the resource here. So as you go through, there may be things where you re-letter this afterwards. So that's one of the reasons why we recommend add your references as you go along. Then you can go ahead and add the letters to go with them to distinguish between these two different things. And then you're not having to go back and re-update things on individual slides. Okay, let's do one more and then we'll call it an evening because I did promise that we'd be out here before the half hour. All right, so we have the different CDC sets. Let's say you were looking at deaths and mortality here. So this is coming from the National Statistics System here. Okay. And we'll go ahead and see, all right. So this is something you might recognize from earlier. So we're looking at the CDC Wonder database at a particular data set within it. And so we have the title here and the subtitle. Oh, we have a description here and a suggested citation. This is not in APA style, so we won't be using that. But it is helpful because it has information that you might want to get. All right, so looking at this, we see, okay, one of the most helpful things here is this link, the suggested link. Because if we went up here and use this, this will not work for past today. It's what's called an expiring thing that's linked to my using my web browser right now, but this will bring us to the page to do the search. All right, so how would we go about formatting this? So first, we need the author, and that's going to be the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention up here. We need the publication year for this data set. So we can see here, oh, that was published in 2022. Great, we've got that. We need to know what it's called. That's up here. And then in this case, it's a data set. And then the link to access it, which is covered down here. All right, so let's go ahead and add that. Now, that's also going to be the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is the author. But we're going in ascending things. So 2020, 2022 for this source will be before that. And then we have our title here of the data set. Paste that in and we switch to keep text only. All right, now we're going to change that to sentence case. Mark this as a data set. And we need the URL to retrieve it. If someone else wants to look up this specific set here later. And there we are. All right, so there you have it. We have 3 different ways of accessing data from the CDC website. This is going directly through Wonder. This is going through the FoodNet. This is coming from an output page that is presenting the results from their surveillance database. And this covers the larger scope. The one other example that I can think of off the top of my head that you might be looking at is where you might be downloading, say, an Excel table or viewing tables directly online. That is certainly something you can do. It'll be cited much as you would any web page, but that's going to be, again, following the who wrote it, when was it published, what's it called, and how do I find it. So very straightforward. Hope that's helpful. And with that, I bid you good night.